But now we're going to continue with the ERA Championship. And ladies and gentlemen, we're still at the World EX Summit here at the BILSTER Berg in Germany. We're still at the 24 hours race. Thank you, Louisa. And but now we're going to continue with another lady. We're going to continue with Beth Giorgio from ERA, and we're going to hear your keynote. Have a nice one. Okay.
Thank you. Wow, I have to go with a microphone and a clicker. So at some point, I'm probably going to try and talk into the clicker and change the slides with the microphone. So bear with me. Yeah, so I'm Beth Giorgio. I'm one of the co-founders and directors of ERA Championship. You may or may not know us yet because we're pretty new. In fact, this is us building up this year. So what is ERA Championship? We're simply the world's first all-electric junior formula racing series. So we're a group of individuals that wanted to be disruptive and innovative with every action we take and with every decision we make in the sport that we're passionate about. We're shifting a sport that's steeped in a lot of tradition, but in order to meet the world that we live in today and the world that we'll live in the future. So what have we done? We've created a unique platform that demonstrates a range of cutting-edge electric vehicle technologies. And in fact, it's sat outside of this room today at the front. Our series is aimed at drivers taking their first steps in their electric racing career ladder, from sim or karting, maybe taking their first steps in cars. Nothing else right now is in this space. And you can see, those are our cars. So we are redefining racing. That's what our mission is. We have 3 core values as an organization, and we want to really set new standards in our sport. They're what drive us and motivate us to get to work in the day. So firstly, and maybe obviously why we're all here today, is sustainability. The world is literally on fire while I'm sat here chatting. Europe's literally on fire while I'm sat here chatting. So we're electric, but that's not enough. We believe that in order to be sustainable in motorsport, we need to be transparent and open. No greenwashing, no lies. There's still a lot of work to be done, and we think acknowledging that work is one of the most important things that we should do at ERA. So what are the things we're doing besides from being electric? Well, our chassis partner, Dome, is actually working on really cool stuff with bodywork using recycled material. To charge on site at our races, we use mobile batteries. No other series is using this at the moment. We're in a unique position where we're able to do this, and you'll find out why a little bit later on. What these mobile batteries enable us to do is to charge using clean energy on site. We don't need to generate any power on site. We bring it all with us. And finally, we're not flying around the world with one series. We're a regional series on a global scale. So at the moment, we're racing in Europe, and eventually we will be global, but always on a regional level. Our second value is equality. Now, this can mean quite a few different things. The first, and maybe the most important one for our drivers, is that every car is the same. And you know what? We've got the data to prove it. So this means that we value talent over budget of drivers, and that means that no budget means that you'll get a better car. Everybody's the same. Inclusivity is also a big priority for us. So we're working with organizations like Racing Pride at Zolder to ensure that everybody feels welcome in our paddock. And then thirdly, accessibility, also another topic that can mean a lot of different things, but affordability is key to making motorsport more accessible and creating opportunities. For our fans, this means that we promise to have a constant free live stream and access to our data. And finally, if you want to drive our car, which maybe you do, we've launched a racing school and experience center at Zolder, which means that any single human in the world can go and drive our car if they want to. If you can fit in it. There's a bit of a height restriction, but you can go and do that. And right now, that's something that's not available elsewhere. So what have we been up to in 2022? Well, we made some history, but as probably everybody else is sat here, it's been a really, really tough year, and we can't pretend it's been easy. We launched a new racing series during a pandemic, and our industry was hit pretty hard. That means that we've had supply issues, logistics issues. Nothing has come or arrived on time when it said it would. Our team worked around the clock this year to make our first race happen, and we saw absolutely incredible racing action in Zolder. And it was racing that was down to the wire with 5,000th of a second between first and second place. So we really showed to the world what it means to drive with equal cars. This is how close racing can be when every car is identical. We're a support series for the FIA ETCR eTouring Car World Cup, which means our drivers are able to impress in front of their teams and drivers. It's an incredible platform for our drivers. Drivers in ETCR and Formula E are paid to be there, obviously. And this is very appealing to our young drivers. They're looking to forge a genuine career rather than just a hobby, but also with a significantly lower budget. Our season was broadcast on Eurosport to more than 150 million households in 70 countries and 25 languages. So it's been a tough year, but it's been a good year overall. And you can see this is a great shot from our race alongside ETCR and Zolder earlier this year. In fact, last month. And there's a video that doesn't play. I think they warned me about this not working. No, it doesn't work. Okay, well, it's okay. He warned me, he said, probably the video won't work. So maybe I just give up with it. We'll come back to the video. So I'll tell you a little bit about our car. Our car's called the Mitsubishi F110E. The chassis was made by our partners Dome in Japan. So that means we're using the Dome F110 chassis, the Japanese Formula 4 chassis. And it's the first time that this chassis has been used in Europe. So really, really exciting. So we partner with them, and in-house we build everything else that goes into the car that makes it electric. And that takes place in our headquarters in Belgium. So a little overview of the specs of the car. Our battery is 24 kilowatt hours. It's a pretty small battery. It's a small car. It's a light car. Our motor is 130 kilowatts, which roughly equates to about 175 horsepower, a top speed of 210 kilometers per hour, and the car weighs in about 600 kilograms, which means it's currently the lightest electric series race car in the world. We use Goodyear 13-inch tires. We use slicks and wets like you would in a combustion series. And excitingly, we have something called regenerative braking in the car, which some of you may know lots about, but this is where energy that's normally lost through braking is instead captured and used to recharge the car's battery during a session. So this is something that the drivers manage with their driving style. It takes about 40 minutes to charge our car on a fast charge, and obviously this mobile battery that we use enables us to utilize clean energy. The reason we're able to use this mobile battery is because, as I mentioned before, our cars are small and light, and our batteries are not that big. So the infrastructure we need to charge our cars is a lot smaller than you would see in other larger series where the cars are heavier and need much bigger batteries. So we kind of see our car as a technology platform, and it enables a lot of research and development, but it's also very accessible and affordable, so we can easily and cost-efficiently implement and test high-tech concepts, such as VR, AR, and power electronics for automotive companies. And one cool thing is our car currently holds the electric lap record in Circuit Zolder. So this is literally the car that is sat outside at the front. So make sure you go take photos with it after the session. And I think later on there might be a driving demonstration. Well, we're also doing something really exciting with our car. And this is the way that we work with data. Data changes everything for us. Data is an absolute game changer. This is one of the most exciting things that we are innovating with our series. We made every single one of our cars an IoT device, Internet of Things device, which means that every single car is its own Wi-Fi beacon and its own 4G hub, like your mobile phone. This means that every single one of our cars can directly connect to the cloud via a thin-edge component, a small computer that lives inside the car, like its brain. This is absolutely revolutionary at our level of racing. But that's kind of techie jargon. You're probably wondering, why does this mean anything when you just want to go on track and go fast, right? So think about it from the perspective of our engineers. Our engineers trackside get this data real time and have so much more control of our car. It enables them to make much more informed decisions. It helps them even solve problems before the problem presents itself. Ironically, this enables us to bring more of the human element back into the machine because we have that visibility and that access. And from a safety perspective, it gives us a much better overview of what's going on at all the time. So for us, it's, as an organization, for our engineers, it's incredible. For drivers, it enables them to correct themselves in real time, enables us to give feedback that would normally happen after a session. You give a driver, especially a young driver, feedback after a session, oh, you know that one corner where you keep doing this, you should be doing that. They probably forget. But in real time, we can tell them this is where the problem is. This is where you're losing valuable seconds. So that's really exciting for drivers. It also enables us to demonstrate the fact that all our cars are equal, as I mentioned before, and show a driver where they're losing time compared to another. We can overlay the data side by side and show you the footwork, show the driver where they're losing time compared to a competitor. So for the drivers, it's a really valuable learning tool. And we have kind of a community relationship with our drivers. Everything is open and shared. And this way we can all learn together because we are at the forefront of something very new in our sport. And for fans, this data can ultimately give them access to choose which car and which driver they view and follow in real time during a race. So you want to see how a driver's footwork is, or you want to see which driver's the most stressed during a race. That's all things that we can do with our data and all things that we're working towards in the future. So really, we're giving our fans ultimate access and bringing them really into the story. All of our data is viewable on a platform called Cumulosity by Software AG, which gives the user the ability to choose exactly which data they view and how they view it. So it means that all our engineers or drivers can customize exactly how they want to view their data. Maybe you want it in a pie chart or you want it in a smiley face or a nice graph. You can choose. So it's a really cool thing that we're doing, and nobody is doing that on this level of motorsport. You'll see this in F1, perhaps, but nothing at a junior level. So racing with us. We like to call it smart driving, and I think some drivers get this straight away. Some drivers not so much, especially drivers with a lot of experience. It takes them time to get used to how to drive. Our drivers need to think differently and learn how to drive with a strategy and intelligently. It's not easy. There's going to be a lot of mistakes and a lot of learning curves, and it happens for us as well. We need to learn how to work best with the drivers. They need to manage their battery and their energy usage, and it's a really important learning curve for their future, especially when efficiency in general in the world is such an important topic for the industry. Going fast is great, but in terms of where the industry wants to direct its technology, it's about being more efficient. That's what the world needs right now. So our drivers can obviously use the regenerative braking that I mentioned earlier, but they can also lift and coast. If they want to overtake, perhaps they use more energy one lap, but then need to consider where they recoup that energy later. Flat out, the whole race won't lead to a successful race for our drivers. It will depend on track to track what that means. So it's an exciting balancing act for the drivers, and they're learning skills that are incredibly valuable for their futures. It's highly strategic. We call it racing chess. But also it means that this racing is really exciting for spectators and fans. It can be incredibly close, it can be heartbreaking, it can be glorifying, it can be incredible. That's electric racing. There's another element now at play, and that's how they manage their energy. So, what's the future for ERA now we've made history this year and run our first race? Well, we're now an FIA International Series. We're actually the first electric junior Formula car to have FIA approval. We are partnered with Warner Brothers Discovery and Eurosport, again for another year, and we'll be joining FIA TCR, the electric touring cars, for another year in Europe. That means we'll have 5 rounds of double headers, so 10 sprint races of 20 minutes, with 2 back-to-back qualies, with no charging between the qualies, so drivers have to plan a little bit of strategy of where they're going to place their fast laps, and mixes up the grid a little bit from race to race. And then on a global level, we would like to enter Asia and North America with separate regional series. So this wouldn't be one going around the world, this will be individual series regionally. Why do we think the future's electric? Well, for us, racetracks was a big decision-making factor in what we're doing. Racetracks are hit really hard with noise restrictions. We are really committed to ensuring the survival of racetracks because some of them simply won't survive if they can't run anymore. Our car is significantly more quiet than combustion cars. So that means for circuits that have a lot of noise restrictions, we can run year-round without causing disturbances. We can even run at night, which makes a lot of exciting future possibilities. Our home circuit, Circuit Zolder, is a circuit that can only run a few weekends a year while making noise. And financially, those kind of circuits need to look at where they invest and how they do things differently. And circuits like Zolder, for example, have stated that they're going to be fully electric by 2030 in order to meet these strict noise restraints. And it's a really smart choice. So we can help circuits like that prepare for an electric future. We can help them electrify. What our cars need, as I've mentioned before, is a relatively minimal requirement in terms of energy and charging, and we can be fairly self-sufficient. So we're a great entry for circuits that are looking to electrify. Our cars typically need a lot less mechanical maintenance as well. Drivers are not going through the brakes, we have less moving parts. So for a long-term situation, there's a lot less maintenance costs, a lot less running costs. So for circuits looking to invest in things like the racing school that we have, it's a lot less stress and a lot less financial implication after your initial investment. And drivers are able to give themselves a USB when they race with us. At the moment, I think, I'm probably going to get this wrong, but there's about 32 electric Formula drivers if you say 10 ERA drivers. Obviously, it's us and Formula E. So if you can make yourself one of 32 rather than one of several thousand drivers that are fighting for a seat in combustion series, then I'm pretty sure there's a lot more sponsorship opportunities for you. Not to mention that a lot of companies right now want to align themselves with things that are seen to be sustainable. Of course, that's where the world is headed. So for drivers, this is a real opportunity at the moment while we're in this stage of sudden evolution to stand out from the crowd. And smart drivers are taking that opportunity and seeing that there's an opportunity for a career. The amount of cars sold this year in the world has actually decreased in many countries, especially in Europe. And yet EV sales are still increasing. For motorsport, we've got to stay ahead of the industry. I always use this metaphor over and over again for my friends that are not involved with motorsport, but motorsport is the catwalk of cars. So for the fashion industry, the catwalk, what happens there is crazy, and then that filters down to what we wear on the street, essentially. It's the same thing for motorsport, or at least that's what it used to be. But as we saw earlier, Vettel said, we're seeing that there's less relevancy for motorsport. So how can the industry continue to justify huge investments if it's not paying off elsewhere, if it's not bringing technologies that are relevant for the industry, if it's not helping them test something that is sellable for them? It's not sustainable. So it's part of the reason why the sport that we all love and the reason why we're all sat here exists and how it is funded. So for us, we shouldn't be following the industry, we should be ahead of it, and we're sort of playing catch up. So that's why we are the next generation of racing. You can come and see the Elysium Racing number 11 car outside and ask us any questions. We'll be driving later today, hopefully sometime between 6 and 7, fingers crossed, not sure when yet. You can follow us on ERA Championship on all platforms. You can watch us on Eurosport in 2023. If you want to see any of our races that happened this year or our race activities, they are all on our YouTube channel. But also, if you want to drive our car, we have the racing school that launched in Zolder in September. So we're able to software adapt the car. Even if you have absolutely no experience in the car, it works like a computer. So we can make the car as drivable for you as you need. So yeah, we are the future, we think, we hope. And this is the next generation. My video didn't work, by the way.
Just gonna see the drone shots you see from the cars on the track. Next generation of racing. ERA Championship, you just said that you had probably transparent drivers, and you said that especially the experienced drivers were not that happy about the fact that they were that much transparent. Did you have a chat with them before you started this technique? Did you ask them, are you really interested? The main thing, for me personally, the most important thing and the most interesting thing was the fact that you're going to follow the drivers who are probably the most stressed drivers. That's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, so
but
driver biometrics is a whole thing that is really interesting. I mean, most of us walk around with these running watches and things like that. So we thought, what if we brought that into the car? So that's our next step is, you know, what is a driver's highest stress point? Which corner are they most stressed? What are their retinas doing? So that's all stuff we're working on for fan engagement. And eventually you should be able to open up our app and say, okay, I want to follow this driver. Wow, she's stressed right now. It adds another dimension to the fans. It brings a cool human element. Like that's a really fascinating thing when you're dealing with athletes. And I think people often forget motorsport. The car is obviously this big technical machine that we're all focused on. And then we see drivers as these kind of colorful personalities that wander around creating drama. But they're also athletes, and it was something that we thought was an important element to bring back in. And of course, as I said before, we have these young drivers coming in. They've come out of electric karting. They've come out of sim racing. They get in our car, and they get it. They just get it straight away. They regen, they're fine. You have a driver that's maybe had a long career in combustion racing, and they get in the car, and oh boy, it can be a real struggle for them to unlearn all of the years of experience. So we're seeing this really fun time where actually the newer drivers, they're picking up the skills that are needed to drive an electric race car a lot quicker than some of the drivers with a lot more experience, and kudos.
It sounds like that, especially on all social platforms, there could be a new era of people following just what you said, the most stressed people and everything. So
I feel like we're going to become just a platform for stressed out people to meet other stressed out people, which is, I mean, it's fair. Yeah, I think in terms of our fan base and in terms of who we look to engage with, I mean, we're open to everybody. Everybody is welcome, but we are seeing a younger generation, Gen Z, coming through. They're very tech-minded. Everything is very focused on gaming, all of that stuff. And this generation, the way they want to view their sport and the way they want to interact is different. They want to feel like they have more control. So with the way that we manage data, maybe eventually one day we are aggregating that data to fans and setting up the cars based on like the average fan setup, they all send in a lot of choices based on the data, and we have an average out of there, and maybe we adjust the aero of the car, and we can have like a fan setup car. There's so much that we can do, and the possibilities with the way that we view the data is endless, and there'll be a lot of exciting things in the future.
Would you say that the ERA Championship is not a kind of a racing school, it's much more a kind of a high school racing school? Because so much more information, at least also for the drivers and for the teams and for everything, people surrounding the drivers. It's brilliant, I mean.
I think it's impossible to compare it to anything else, and maybe a big mistake that often is made is because we run in a chassis that visibly looks like a Formula 4 chassis is to compare us to a combustion Formula 4. But in terms of what we're doing tech-wise, it's just really different, and the driving style and the kind of drivers that are coming and racing in our series, it's I think maybe the way the car looks is the only similarity at this point. So we move away from comparing ourselves to Formula 4 because we're seeing that the electric career ladder in motorsport looks very different anyway. We're seeing these drivers paid to be in Formula E, paid to be in ETCR. It's becoming a real viable career ladder for drivers, which means that we get talent in the car, and that's so exciting for the sport.
We heard this today, a new era, and I guess that the new era for motorsport is ERA Championship. Ladies and gentlemen, big applause for Beth Giorgio.
Thank you.